Yeah, start.
Good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the third speaker session of ByteVerse on iOS app development domain. Today, we have Rani as our co-host for the session. We are thrilled to have each one of you join us today. We are confident that you will be amazed at the level of innovation, collaboration, and problem solving that emerges from this event. Whether you are an experienced coder or a newcomer to the hackathon, we encourage you to take a risk, learn, and have fun. Now, I would like to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Ms. Gunjan Madaan ma'am, who is expert in iOS app development with over 39K followers on social media. She currently works at Microsoft and is highly respected in the industry. She has also given multiple informative sessions on coding and programming, such as on Gigs for Geeks, one of the leading platforms for developers worldwide. Gunjan's expertise lies in software development, and she has worked on various projects during her career, from web application to mobile apps. She is passionate about sharing her knowledge with others and helping them to learn to code. Today's session promises to be insightful, informative, and thought provoking. As she shares her experience and expertise, we have the opportunity to expand our understanding of iOS app development and gain new insights into this dynamic and ever evolving area. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Gunjan ma'am for her willingness to share her time and knowledge with us. We are truly grateful for her presence here today. So, without any further delay, let's move to our speaker who will give us a brief introduction about herself and will share her journey on iOS app development. Gunjan Madan ma'am, over to you.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys, and thank you so much for having me here. So, Sarjit has already introduced me about myself. So, I think without any delay, we can start with the app development basics. So, let me just present my screen, and please confirm if my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for
Yes, ma'am.
confirming. So, first of all, before uh, starting anything, we will talk about the basics of the app development. Like before developing anything, not even the app, in fact, any website, before developing anything, what are the things we should keep in mind so that the app should be scalable, reliable, and it should be performant. So just don't get too much by these words like scalable, reliable, and performant. I'll just explain you all these terminologies: what scalable means, what reliable means, what performant means. uh, let's keep going with the session, and slowly you will get to know all the terminologies. So first of all, what are the things that we have to keep in mind while developing an app? So let's say you want to develop an app, and now before developing it, you first think about the design. So by design, I mean the architectural design, what architecture you need to use. For example, let's say I have to make an app which search the usernames. So I can maybe create it in one page, making a one two three functions, and in that one page only I have the I can fetch the data from the API, and in that another function I can maybe represent the use. I can after fetching the names, I can maybe show it on the UI. So all the things we don't have to keep in one file. If we keep it in one file, then maybe in future there are chances that that app may not only restricted to the searching of user's name but also showing it in a different manner, or there may be a time when we want to do some enhancement in the UI. So first we need to think about the architecture, how we are gonna develop this app. So for architecture wise, like there are various architectures which are basically used in the iOS app, but these are three mainly architectures which we use while building our project, and it depends from scenario to scenario, whether your app is big or your app is small, what are depending on your use case, we decide which architecture will fit in according to your needs. So one is MVC. MVC is model view controller. So whenever you develop an app, so there are three layers. One is model, another one is view, and the third one is controller. So model will handle all the things which is related to data. For example, we need to show the user information, let's say using an ID. So we will be calling an API and that will give us the data. So this we will keep in one layer because we are getting the data only. And the second one is the view. So view will always it will always displays the UI. So let's say there is a beautiful UI on the app, and that will represent the username, maybe a display picture, or maybe the company or the organization, or maybe the batch in which the user is. So UI will display all this information, but UI don't have that information. It will get that information from the model layer. So the sorry it will get that information from the controller layer. So what controller layer does is, model layer has the raw data whatever it gets from the API, but it is not in a form which can be directly consumed by the UI. So there is a controller layer in between. What that controller layer does, it acts as a immediate intermediary layer between your model layer and the view layer. So after doing some calculations maybe related to, let's say there's some app name or something, so some calculations whatever the logic this layer will do, and then it will pass on that data to the view layer. So it depends whether like if your app is small and you don't have much use case, like let's say in terms of scalability. For example, now you are building an app related to the let's say you are building now an app which is related to the showing names to the user, or using an ID. You can show the name of the user, the branch which it is in, and what are the courses it is taking, he or she is taking. So this is the app as of now, but in future there may come some of the use cases, let's say according to that in which club the user is in. So depending on how much scalable is the app is, if the app is more scalable, then we will go for the MVVM. If it's not that big app, then we can continue with the MVC model. The second architecture comes as MVVM. MVVM is model view model. So again, here also the model layer will handle the data only, and the view layer will handle the UI only. But there will be two layers, another two different layers, which will handle the view model. So what view model does is it will have the logic part in itself to convert the data layer in such a form so that it can easily be used by the view layer. And view model will contain the data also, but it will contain the data in the modified form, which is which can directly be used by the view layer. Then comes the another clean architecture. So in this architecture, what we have is we have different layers depending on the responsibility of the responsibility of the layers. For example, we will keep a different layers for the testing, for modularity. For example, depending on the modules we have, we will have different module layers for that. Let's say the app is very big and it is related. Let's say there is a loan module, there is a we can say payment module. So all these modules will have different package, and they will have different layers. So every layer will have their testing layer, every layer will have its data layer, every layer will have its model layer, every layer will have a file which will contain the logic that converts the data in such a form that it can be used by the viewer. So depending on how big your app is and what are the use case scenarios related to your app, and in future whether that app will have more scenarios, then we can use the architecture based on that. So coming again back to this slide. So we will figure out, depending on the usage, as well as depending on the depending on the size of the app, what are the designs which we can follow, so that in future if our app requires any other thing, or let's say if we want to change the UI of the app, then we don't have to change anything related to the data of the app. So this is the thing, this is the most important point that we have to consider while creating or developing any app. Second, then there comes the testing part. So while like whenever we design an app, we always design, and while developing any app, we always think about the test cases. So there's a strategy called as test driven development. So what that test driven development means, we need to modularize our function in such a way that first you think about the test cases. Like let's say if there is any scenario, first you think about what are the test cases, what are the scenarios which are possible, what are the possibly user can do on that app, and depending on scenarios you first write the test cases, and then modularize your function in such a way that if you pass some of the, like if you pass the some of the test cases in that function, then that using mock you can also run that app also. So testing, I would say, is very important in app development, because let's say you keep on developing your app, and you have your app in the deployment phase, and someone makes some changes and you don't know what that change will lead to any crash or not. Is that a major change that mm, that can be possibly lead to the crash of the app? Then it's, in that case, it's testing which will help you recognize the prior to the crash, if there is anything that is falling in that. So these are the major things which we have to keep in mind. And then comes the uh, one of the most important thing, that is the memory management. So whenever we create any, let's say there's an example, let's say we create a person class, and the person class has name in it, and while initializing, it's been initialized. So there is a reference count. In iOS, there is ARC, automatic reference counting, which is provided by the Swift. What automatic referencing done is, whenever you create an object of a class, then that object is assigned a reference count. Let's say here we have created an object person using this class. Then we see that John is being initialized. So the reference count of this particular object is 1. That means there's an object in the memory whose reference count is 1, whose reference count is 1. And whenever we after creating the person, whenever we remove that object from the memory, then it will deallocate itself. So let's say if you create an object and you create a strong references, for example, let's say there can be person 2. Let's say let person 2 is equal to person 1. You assign a person 2 to person 1, and then again you assign person 1 to person 2. So now there are two objects in the memory who both of that objects are referencing to one another. Now they that is known as the strong reference cycle. Now both the objects will remain in the memory, and this will eventually lead to the memory leak. So we need to avoid these memory leaks. So we while creating strong references, we have to keep in mind that we don't create any strong references. We should create weak references only, so that whenever an object is deallocated from the memory, the another object will go away itself. Another I think another important thing is, while managing your memory, it's very important to load the object only when it's needed. For example, we were talking about the searching our searching app, searching a person in an app. So let's say after searching the person in an app, there is some thank you slide or there is anything on the second page. So your app should not load the second page thing until or unless user is on the first page, or user presses the button from the first page. You lazily load the things, so you initialize the object, but that object should not be in the memory until and unless the user won't go to the second page of the app. So always use lazy loading concept whenever you can do that. Also we need to avoid the unnecessary object creation. So if always keep in mind about the global variables, about the function variables, about the block variables. So let's say if I so there's a person here. If I create this object not in the function, maybe let's say I globally declare this object, then this object will remain in the memory whenever this class will remain in the memory. So always try to see where you can limit the scope of that object. So try to utilize the memory in a better way, by avoiding the unnecessary creation of the object. Then basically comes about the app crashes and debugging in iOS app development. So there are two major things which lead to the app crashes, or uh, which is related to the app crashes. One is the memory leak, which I think I have explained you earlier, related to the memory leakage. And the second one which leads to app crashes is the variable is undefined. For example, whatever the variable you are trying to fetch or you are trying to get, that variable is not present. So like we have called an API using the ID to get all the user details, and now that user does not exist, or that ID is fake. So always try to cater the use case that there may be possibility that user doesn't exist. So always think in terms of worst case scenario. Always try to handle it using the try catch. Whenever you think that don't always assume that the object whatever you are trying to get will always be available from the API or from the app. So always try to uh, cater that object in try or catch, or maybe try to handle the worst case scenarios also, that what happens if the that user is not available, what is the screen we will show to the user. And let's say if the user is available, what happens if that if his or her name is not available, last name is not available. So always try to think about the worst case scenarios. And also related to the memory leakage, always try to not create too many objects. And apart from this, you can also use the debugging also in your iOS app if there's any crash happening. So in Xcode, there is in the help section there is a crash report, crash reporting tool, which will help you get the crash logs. So using that crash logs, you can always identify in the app where your app is crashing, so you can find out that. And also you can use the various, like there is Fabric Crash Analytics, there are tools which come, and you can always register for that in your app. And then whenever let's say after going to production, whenever your app crash, you will get a you will get a email, and also the uh, also you will get the logs of that crash, and then you can solve the problem. Also whenever you are testing for the app, always try to test it on the different environments and with the different iOS versions. So this will help you a lot, because there are some scenarios where your app will crash on the uh, uh, like older versions of the OS. So you before creating anything, you will always need to see where my app is working fine or not. Uh, then after this comes the app performance and the battery usage. So how we can optimize our app performance. So performance, I think nowadays is a very big thing, because most of the organizations are just reaching for the perfection of the performance. Because let's say if we open an app and that app is not opening for a second, within a second, then what user do? They will just close the app, and in some cases they just uninstall the app. So we always have to think in terms of performance, whether will that app will load in just a matter of seconds or not. So always try to optimize or minimize the network usage. Let's say whenever we're calling any service to get the data, so we always need to think whether it is required or not. I agree, for the first time it is required, because you have to get data from somewhere, and in that case we have to get from the service, like. But for the next time, maybe you can cache that thing if user is coming again and again for that data. So in that case, you can cache and avoid some of the network avoid that network usage on the app, and that will not delay the user that will not delay the user from seeing the information. So you can use cache, you can try using cache in that case. And let's say if there are images in your app, then you can always compress your images. For example, we were talking about the person app. So in that person app, you have the person image over there. Then you can using the tinylicious or anything, you can always compress that image. And by compression, you can help user to see that image within seconds. And I think memory leak is a big area, and I have already explained about the memory leaks. That in case of memory leaks, user will not able to access anything, and after some time, it will just lead to crash only. So always avoid memory leaks. Always try to use the memory efficient in an efficient way. And then maybe there are some services which run in the background. For example, let's say there are some things which user don't need right now. So what we do is we we run some services for the next page in the background, so don't run too much background services over there that can slow your app performance. So first you think about the app performance, and then if it's necessary to run some of the services in the background, then only you can use the background services. Then comes the app localization and internationalization. So nowadays, if like whenever we make any app, so we always have the agenda that it can be used by the users as much as they can use. And it's not only limited to one language, it is limited to a lot of like in India only there are so many languages there. So we always try that the same app can be used in Hindi or can be used in English or in any language the user is comfortable with. So for that, what we do is we make a file known as a localization file, and in that file we keep some of the strings related to the every language whichever the our app will support. And this can be achieved using the ns localized string. For example, here, while assigning a value or a text to a label, what I have done is I have assigned it to a localized string. So this ns localized string will give the value, whether it's in English or Hindi, to this UI label, and it will represent the text depending on the language. So before doing this, whenever we create a label, we always think in terms of that our text can be shown to the user from left to right or right to left depending on the language. So always use auto layout and always try to test it on the different devices and with the different language, whether it is coming fine for both from left to right and from right to left only. And there are some images in our app which are having text as the image. Then also you have to keep those localized images as compressed images in your file, so that the ns localized string will fetch, depending on the language, it will fetch the correct image. And also there's an app metadata. So what is app store metadata is, for example, in your app there is some text in the app image, there is some text which is written in English language and the user has switched to Hindi language. So your metadata should also changed in terms of uh, if the user change its language to some another language. So these are some of the basic things which we have to keep in mind. Like these are end-to-end things which we have to keep in mind while developing an app for the user, uh, to uh, to a global level, so that every user can use it irrespective of what the language is, and to be performant. And I totally agree. I have covered only the basics right now, because I have no idea whether you guys are developing an app or not. But I hope these basics will help you a lot. So thank you. And if anyone has any question, then they can ask.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a really informative session. Means whatever you presented from that, beginner will be definitely able to start. Means he or she get a clear roadmap of how to start and how does the app development work in the IT industry. Because on the college level, we just know about the things, we know about the technology and the skills that yes, this is how it works. We don't have much about idea about debugging and testing, that how does the debugging and testing works. We also don't have much idea during the college life that how does the battery optimization and performance optimization works. But you explained them so clearly that we are able to get them. You also yes ma'am, please.
So I just telling, I have just touch base the points. What are the things which are important while developing the app? So these are not that I have started the topic but not finished it yet. Maybe because otherwise it will get too deep in the discussion. So just keep in mind these, all these are the things while developing an app, and just try to first start building your app on your own, and slowly you will create amazing app.
Yes ma'am. Ma'am, so here we have another one question that we want to ask, that we talk about the debugging, we talk about testing. From we discussed almost everything, which is more than basic, because it was up to a level of IT industry app development, which is much above of the level of what we can as a college student be know, that it is much above, because you included two or three things which are not common in the college, things like memory management, and then you the optimization techniques and testing and debugging. You also throw focus on localization and internalization of app. How does that work through the change of metadata and all? So we have one more question, that through the leak of data, because privacy these days has become very important, and through the phone, single phone, everything can be done. A person's whole data, and everything is resided, his from his bank accounts to his personal informations, like what he eat from Zomato and all of the other things. So while building an iOS app, how do you ensure that iOS app will protect user data? I am
So
repeating. Okay.
yeah, please continue.
I was just repeating the question, that how do you ensure that iOS app is secure and it protect your users data?
So I think it's a very good question, and always user have the main concern of securing his or her data and protecting his or her data. So always keep in mind while we query the data from the APIs. So always keep in mind we don't share the sensitive information over the APIs while developing the app. So and also don't related to any user ID, don't share anything from which user can or the hackers can know the information, or which is very common to guess the ID. For example, whenever you create any object, you always create a ID corresponding to that. So don't always create that ID. For example, ID is equal to 1, now get me the data for ID is equal to 1. Always try to create the IDs which are in the range from six digit number or 8 digit number. So that should be unexpected. So always try to get that kind of thing whenever you are assigning any IDs or anything which is unpredictable. Always try that. And another thing I think related to protection of user data, don't expose anything on the UI. Always keep it on the model layer, because backends are much secure, much or more secure than the UI. So whenever, let's say, if you have also seen that uh, there are some data which we show to the user, let's say credit card information in the form of asterisks. So don't put that asterisks, don't get the all the information from the backend and then put asterisks on the UI. Always get that asterisk information and get the last 4 digit from the backend only. Don't keep it on the UI. Also, whenever you give any restriction to the user, for example, user can only let's say user have to fill their first name, always they have to fill their first name. So keep that check on the backend, not on the UI, because the hackers can easily bypass the UI checks, but they will not bypass the backend check. So these are some important points you have to keep in mind while creating the app, that everything should be on the back end, not on the UI. So make your UI as dumb as possible.
So
Okay
one
ma'am.
more question.
N- Next question
So
will be taken by my colleague Rani. So Rani, over to you.
so I want to ask ma'am that have you ever worked with Apple's code data framework? Like if you do, then can you describe your experience, how it was?
So, I think you are asking about the database, Apple Core database, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So, there is there is a core data which is provided by the Apple. So what Apple does is, let's say you have to create a database on your own in the app, then you can create a core data in your app. So this is a concept which is a little like, this is not the basic concept, this is a little bit advanced concept related to the core data. What let's say you want to keep some information in your app, and always keep in mind while keeping that data into the app, that you always have to refresh it, you always have to update it, and while fetching any data from that core data, you have to handle everything like related from updating the app to creating it. Because if you create a new column over there after some like while creating a new database, you always have to think uh, futuristic, that in future you don't have to change anything in the database, otherwise for the old users that may create a problem. So this is a little bit of advanced concept, and right now I can only give you that information only, because if I use other terms, then I have to explain everything related to that terminology only.
Okay, thank you. I think we are done with the question answer session. I would like to ask you means a very personal kind of question, that how was your experience in IT industry? Means how you feel to be an IT engineer? Because some my most of the places we see that for software engineers it become hectic, whereas some say no, that's it's good. Some for someone it's like they say it's fun. So for you how it is? How do you see it?
So I think I think of software engineer job as a more of as a problem solving skill. For example, let's say if you have a, so you are making the people life easy by just using your mind, how you can solve problem to make others life easy, how you can make a global impact by just writing some few lines of the code. So for example, earlier if you want to eat anything, you have to go to the restaurant, then you have to order there, and then you have to eat there, and then you have to pay manually, then you have to wait for the exchange and all these things. But now after um all this digitalization, everything has become so easy that on the click you can get your food in your home. So I think we are the leaders who are changing the world, and we are providing services to the world on a global level, that are making the people's life very easy uh, in terms of the services. So I think I sometimes feel proud to be a software engineer, and I think it depends whether you enjoy solving problems or not, or you want to just criticize the problem. So, if you want to solve the problems existing in the world, and you know that you have that skill in your own to solve that problem, then sometimes I feel very happy that uh, I am making some things that help a lot of users in making their life easy. So I enjoy my life, and in Microsoft there is a pretty cool work life culture. So
Yes. And one more thing, if somebody wants to start career in the thing it's like iOS app development, we can see
mhm.
that the market of iOS is bigger, but it is not much bigger with respect to what we call Android. Because if you go through the Android phones, they are easily available, and no, the market price is cheap, and we see the worldwide. The lot of people means most of the people cannot afford such expensive phones like iPhones and all, because they are more than approximately 10,000 or $15,000. So up to so the market size is limited. Means production of iOS devices are limited up to some extent with respect to what we can say the Android. So, up to what level or up to what extent you suggest fresher or somebody to start a career in iOS app development?
So I truly agree with your point that in India we have a lot of Android users as compared to iOS users, but there are some countries where iPhones are used more as compared to Androids, and there are also some of the apps which are more used in iOS as compared to iPhone, Androids. So market is always limited for Android as well as for iOS also. It depends on from country to country which country uses more iPhones depending on their economy. So I think we can't do much in that sense, and I hope this answers
Okay.
your question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It was a good session, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. I would like to take a moment to express our sincerest thanks to our distinguished guest, Speaker Miss Gunjan Madaan, ma'am, for her incredible presentation today. Her expertise and insights were truly enlightening, and we are grateful for the opportunity to have learned from them. She not only shared her knowledge and experience, but also engaged us with their thought provoking ideas and perspective. Her session was informative, engaging, and inspirational, leaving us with new ideas and a greater understanding of iOS app development. I would also like to thank all of you, our audience, for your participation and engagement during the session. Your questions and feedback added to the richness of the discussion, and we appreciate your contributions. Finally, I would like to thank our event organizers, volunteers, our team members whose support made this session possible. We could not have done it without your dedication and hard work. So come and join us in our hackathon ByteVerse on large scale. And also be ready for next session on Git and GitHub by our colleagues Devat Raj and Anushka Dubey on 12th April from 5:30 p.m. Once again, on behalf of everyone involved in this session, I would like to express our gratitude to Ms. Gunjan Madan for sharing her time and expertise with us. It was truly a memorable and valuable experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys, for
Thank you so
joining,
much.
for giving so time. Thank you.
Ma'am, shall I?